Welcome back to the Comedy Room, and we've got a bit of bonus content for you. And this is all about one of our favourite comedians, one of the few comedians that we can agree on. He is known as the Taskmaster, as well as starring in Man Down, Cuckoo, and the new show, The Cleaner. You may have seen his stand-up tours, firing cheese balls at a dog, the back of my mum's head, and You Magnificent Beast. The subject of our episode today is the magnificent, I won't call him a beast, although at 6'8", he certainly towers over me, at Greg Davies.
He also towers over me. He's a full foot taller than me and far funnier. I think we all sort of first got to know Greg through the In-Betweeners, but he'd done various other bits and pieces before the In-Betweeners, guesting in Saxondale. He was with Katie Brand's Big Ass Show. I do remember that, but I don't remember him. It wasn't until the In-Betweeners that I really knew who he was, because I think for me, Phil Gilbert was the funniest person in In-Betweeners.
Don't call him Phil.
No, Mr. Gilbert, he's a teacher.
He was actually a teacher though in his pre-comedy life, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yes, a very poor one in his own words.
I don't know if that's modesty or whether he was just a really crap teacher.
I think he's probably telling the truth, but he is watching his stand-ups. He's very self-deprecating, so it could be elaborating. But I have a feeling he's telling the truth. I don't think he actually he cared about the children, but I don't think he actually cared about the job. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, he was an English and drama teacher, wasn't he?
Yes, and he said he blagged his way to actually be head of year. He doesn't know how he done it. He doesn't even think he applied. He just turned up one day and he was head of year.
That is brilliant. Yeah, so the In-Betweeners, that was kind of the first sort of glimpse into the world of chaos that Greg Davies plays so well. The whole thing of you've got the four main characters and the scrapes that they get into. And you'd think, oh, okay, in any kind of normal school, Mr. Gilbert would be this kind of quiet, calm voice of reason.
Yeah.
He just makes every situation 20 times more chaotic just by standing there.
Yes. Just towering over them. I'm in charge.
Yeah. Did you just call me Phil? That kind of thing. Yeah, it's
yeah.
It really kind of made the show because you know the whole thing of the In-Betweeners is that there's chaos and they've no idea how to deal with it. And then he comes along and makes the whole thing worse. So anything that's awkward, he just makes it more awkward and just kind of turns up the chaos of a few hundred notches. But then he was it was 2008 the In-Betweeners came out, would you believe?
That long ago?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like 13 years ago that we were introduced to the gruesome foursome. But the first film was 10 years ago, 2011.
Wow.
It
just seems like yesterday, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, that was the one where they go to Somalia, don't they?
Yeah, I'm just having flashbacks of my first friend's holiday to Benidorm, and that's crazy. Yes, and it's like, yes, it's the In-Betweeners. Yes, it's all a little bit OTT and far-fetched, but a lot of that stuff actually happened, and there's definitely a sense of realism about them, even though it's sort of it's the typical over the top, but it's hinted with a lot of realism.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We were all sort of like cringe-worthy teenagers at one time who had absolutely no idea what we were doing in life at all. getting into all kinds of horrible scrapes that would be like, well, you'd want to look back and just think, that never happened. Honestly, that never happened. That was all a figment of my imagination. But I think they're about 18 roughly in the show, aren't they? They're doing A levels, and it's a whole thing of they're at that kind of really sort of awkward stage, which really kind of makes it all the more funny. But his first actual tour that was actually released onto the TV and DVD and whatever was firing cheese balls at a dog in 2011.
Yeah, it's possibly, I'd say, my favourite stand-up of his. The wife and I, of an evening, have the TV on in the bedroom, and we just put stand-up comedy on.
Yeah,
she likes the familiarity of the voices that helps her get to sleep, which is I can understand that. For me, I like it for the comedy, and I must say it probably I never saw all because it's on late in the evening. There's sometimes then I watch them the normal time, and I'm suddenly laughing. And she said, "Have you not seen this bit?" I said, "No, I'm probably falling asleep by then." So I've seen it all the way through, but it's probably taken me about 20 times. The bit with the nicknames, that's for me. That's my favourite bit of his. The footballer with the Toblerone head and the 50p boots and all the nicknames and Mumbo. Why are you Mumbo? Because my mum had BO. And it's inane and but it's funny. He makes it funny. He makes the inane funny. I think he's just a naturally funny man.
He is. He's just everything that he does. It's just so funny, and his mere presence just makes it that much funnier.
Yeah, where there's some comedians who sometimes it's I think in real life they'd struggle to just be funny naturally. They work to a routine, and they've honed that routine. But I think Greg gives the impression, I'm calling him Greg like he's my best mate, but it gives me the impression that he'd be funny that naturally without working to a script. It'd just be that person that he's having a drink within the pub, and he'd be the center of attention because he was so funny.
I get the feeling that he'd be a great torment merchant.
Yeah.
If there was ever like a torment in a group of friends, and everyone was just like, "Who's done this?" You just know that all the eyes would fall on him, and that probably is one of the things that probably triggered him to think, actually, maybe teaching isn't the right thing, because obviously, as a teacher, you can't torment the kids. Well, you shouldn't. I dare say there are probably a few teachers somewhere that'd be like, actually, it's the only way we get through the day. But I would not be surprised if he was a bit notorious for torments in the staff room.
Yeah.
But 2012 was when Cuckoo started. Now that was actually that has run for 5 series, and that is where he stars alongside Andy Samberg.
Isn't Taylor Lautner in that as well? The American lad.
Yes, he is actually. Yes.
I must admit, Cuckoo is probably the only his main shows that I've not seen.
I've seen quite a bit of it. It really, really is funny.
I'll have to get around to it.
Yeah.
I have to add it to the ever-growing list of things I must watch, because we talk about these things. I say, yeah, I'll watch it, and it's growing and growing and growing. I think I need 6 months off work just to sit down and watch TV. But I don't think no one will do that.
I hope your bosses aren't listening.
I'll work from home. Put the telly on in the background.
You can get away with that, can't you?
I can.
But that ended in 2019. and it's actually on iPlayer at the minute, but has actually been shown on Netflix as well. So well worth checking out if like Verso you've overlooked it. 2013 was the release of The Back of My Mum's Head. That was his tour, The Back of My Mum's Head, not the back of anybody else's mum's head, just randomly being released. So that was the second major tour that he did. And again, absolutely hilarious. It was definitely one of the best shows of recent years that I've seen.
Again, I've not actually seen that one. It was the Magnificent Beast is the one I actually went to live, but we'll get to that later. Again, this one has been on numerous times in the house, and yeah, it is very funny. There is one little piece in there he does about noises. I didn't like that, but the rest of it is fantastic. And his parents, what a source of material. Everything, everything is again, it's embellished truth, isn't it? I think where it's happened, but of course with everyone who tells stories for a living, they add little bits and tweak it. But again, 80-90% of that is true, because I think his dad was crazy without intending to be. He was just getting about his normal business, but Greg found everything he done hilarious, and used him to earn a lot. In his own words, I earned a lot of money out of my parents. Thank you very much, he said.
So the same year that The Back of My Mum's Head was released was the first series of Man Down, which was the most famous thing about Man Down was the fact that his on-screen father was played by the late, great Rick Mayall. And as I'm sure anybody that has ever seen it will agree, perfect casting, absolute perfect casting. Because I look at Greg Davies' performances and this whole propensity towards sort of chaos and being the character that is the chaotic one. And I see somebody who is clearly a very big fan of Rick Mayall.
Yeah, and there's been Twitter posts and Google posts, and people actually think that they are father and son. They think, people have actually said, is Greg Davies Rick Mayall's son? Because there's a striking resemblance as well, isn't there? In physicalities about them. There'd be no surprise if he actually said, yes, Rick Mayall is my dad, but he's not. But you can see why people get misled on that, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that when you have someone who's as uniquely talented as Rick Mayall, and there was such a great supporting cast in there as well. Roisin Conaty, who is just
she's fabulous.
The embodiment. She's just the embodiment of chaos herself, isn't she? And Mike Wozniak, who is very subtly funny. Very
he was serving his Taskmaster, wasn't he?
Yes. That was definitely one of my favorite lineups of Taskmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge Charlotte Ritchie fan anyway, courtesy of Dead Pixels, which is a show that I will tell anybody who will listen long enough how great it is. But yeah, Mike Wozniak is just he's very, very subtle humor. And that was one series where I actually saw people sort of standing up to, well, I say people, Jamali Maddox standing up to Greg. But obviously we'll cover that more in the Taskmaster section. But that was definitely the best season so far, best lineup of Taskmaster so far. So we move on to 2014. Before
we move on, can I just say one thing about his mum in this program,
Yep.
Gwyneth Powell, who was a highlight for me because being of a certain age, she was the best headmistress ever been to on TV as Mrs. McCluskey from Grange Hill. I know Grange Hill's not a comedy, and we're not touching on stuff like that. But Gwyneth Powell, when I saw Gwyneth Powell in this program, I was just as excited as I've ever been about. So I get better casting because I'd only ever seen her in Grange Hill, and she suddenly appears as Greg Davies' mum, and I loved that.
I never watched a great deal of Grange Hill because it was sort of less fashionable.
Yeah, and I think when it come to, because I think we touched on it in episode 1 that I'm a bit older. I think I was lucky, and I had the first 10 years were the best, and I think after that, as you say, it just became too formulaic, and I think they stopped it being so edgy.
Yeah, the problem was by the time I was watching it or was at the age to watch it, kids' dramas were sort of 10 a penny by then.
Yeah, Barker Grove was the number 1, and Children's Ward, and we've gone off on the right tangent here, haven't we?
I couldn't stand Children's Ward. I hated it. Absolutely hated Children's Ward with a passion. Anyway, so 2014, the In-Betweeners 2. So this is the one where they go to Australia. So Mr. Gilbert's appearances in that are more sort of brief, as they get sort of little bits of flashbacks to back home and stuff, and little bits of communication with back home. But the majority kind of focuses on the 4 of them in Australia and the things that kind of follow them around.
Didn't Mr. Gilbert end up with Will's mum?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a while since I watched them all, so yes, he did.
Yeah, because it was the whole thing of the person that sort of feared him most was Will.
Yes.
And of course, Will's mum being unattached, the natural sort of nightmare scenario for young William Mackenzie is Mr. Gilbert, the stepfather. So it's the whole thing of like, what's going to happen to them after the show ends? Well, what's going to happen is that poor Will is going to be the one with the most unfortunate ending.
Yeah, perfect.
It was absolutely hilarious. The first time I saw that, I just couldn't stop laughing. It was just so funny. 2015 was when Taskmaster actually started. And would you believe we're up to 11 seasons of that, or 11 series?
Yeah.
Series 12 is starting very soon, as in about 3 days after we're recording this episode. And the new lineup has recently been announced. But like I said, the absolute highlight for me was series 11. It was just such a funny series, but the rapport between Greg and Alex Horne, or Little Alex Horne as he's known to viewers of the show, despite the fact the only person he's little compared to is Greg himself.
Yes.
I think Alex is about 6'4" or something.
Is he?
He's not a small gentleman.
No.
He'd certainly tower over the two of us. But the only person he's little compared to is Greg himself, because I've actually seen him standing near contestants, and he towers over the majority of them. But
just shall we do, as we're recording this, we both know the lineups. Shall we randomly pick our winner to see how close we are?
Go on, you
Series
first.
12. I'll go for Victoria Karen Mitchell.
I'm going to say the same, because because very good reason.
Yeah.
As we saw in the last series, things get turned on their head when people are not afraid of the Taskmaster.
Yes.
Because you had, Lee Mack would argue his point a little bit. Mike Wozniak would just sort of roll over like a dog because, he'd have his belly tickled. Sarah Kendall would give him a bit of stick. Charlotte Ritchie, again, just wouldn't stand up to him and just took all the abuse that he was giving out. Whereas Jamali Maddox would give back as good as he got. And he won because if he was criticized for anything, he would always have an answer. And he would always argue his point and stuff. And it would put Greg on the back foot. And I think he secretly liked the fact that somebody was actually standing up to him and actually giving him something to sort of think about. And I think if anyone is going to do that, I think Victoria Coren Mitchell is the ultimate in that sort of arena. And I think she's going to be absolutely hilarious as well.
Yes.
Because she will sort of take the humor that step further. And in a very subtle, very intelligent way, which she's famous for. And I've seen her in things like Would I Lie to You and things like that. She's so funny. Especially when anything that there's any sort of questions around her and David. There was one lie that Dave Mitchell had to do, and it was something like, Victoria doesn't know this, but, and the absolute savagery he got courtesy of Lee Mack on that one. It was like, so Victoria, just asking, how are you going to react to this? And really just sort of, she's so funny. And I think she will be very much a match for Greg in a lot of ways. So if she doesn't win, then I think she'll certainly be the people's winner.
Mm.
But did you happen to see his appearance on Travel Man?
No, I didn't know he was on it until I'd done a little bit more research for the things of his I hadn't seen, and I've never seen that program, but I like Richard, who's the host, so I think I should try and find him again, adding more to my list to watch.
What Richard Ayoade spent some of his life in your neck of the woods, didn't he?
Yes, he was Ipswich. I'm Felixstowe, so he was what, 12, 13 miles away from my hometown.
Practically neighbours.
Yes, but vastly different backgrounds. He's funny and I'm not.
I didn't want to say.
I know it's comedy, but 2015 saw Greg's appearance in one of my favourite series of all time, Doctor Who.
When you said 2015, I thought, is one of your favourite shows A Gertlush Christmas?
No, he was in the Christmas episode of Doctor Who, though.
I was going to say, I know you're a fan of Russell Howard, but I didn't think that you rated A Gertlush Christmas that highly. I've never watched an episode of Doctor Who. Is that wrong?
No, it's not. Everyone, we're all different, aren't we? And we've all got different things. There's things that you watch and I wouldn't, and some in the past when I've said I love Doctor Who, it was trendy to knock it, but I was just ignore it. Just watch what you like. I love it, and I'll keep on watching it until they finish it. If someone else decides that they like Star Trek better, then brilliant, well done.
Never seen that either.
No, I haven't. But I like Doctor Who, but I don't really like sci-fi. I'm very contradictory. You'll no doubt as this series develops, you'll you know some sharpshooter on Twitter be like, episode 6, you said you like so and so. Episode 2, you said you didn't. That's just the way it is. We like people some days and we don't like them the next day.
And it's at
And
that point, and it's at that point
that's
you
my
block me from.
go for it. But I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and it's at that point you block me from Twitter.
Yeah.
But we did actually see a serious side of Greg in 2017 when he did an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? And it's always nice to sort of see comedians away from the sort of scripted or rehearsed sort of having to be funny and sort of looking at sort of what were their families like away from sort of making jokes about them. You know, when you see comedians and you've watched various routines and things like that, it's always nice to sort of see the person behind that. You know, the person, you know, rather than somebody standing on stage with a microphone telling all the jokes that they've probably done 100 times already. And, you know, to actually see them as a person with a family and a past and kind of growing up and where they've sort of come from, that can be really sort of interesting. Plus, a lot of the research that they do as well is things that maybe he didn't even know himself. Can't remember masses of the show.
Is one thing that's I remember. It's a while back since it was on. Didn't his dad ensure that when his mum was pregnant that they were actually in Wales for the birth, so he could actually play for the Welsh rugby union team?
Yeah,
that's the only thing that stands out from that episode for me.
Yeah,
that he made sure that the mum was in Wales when she gave birth.
Yep. His father was actually originally from Portmadoc. That is somewhere I've been to on numerous occasions for holidays and stuff. Very nice part of the world, but not a lot of famous people from there. So I think one of their most famous sons is Greg Davies' father.
Yeah.
So 2018 saw the You Magnificent Beast tour, along with a voice appearance in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, I was washing my hair that week. But You Magnificent Beast is actually on Netflix.
Yes. That's where I first saw it on Netflix. Yeah. There's I saw it at Ipswich Regent, and unlike other comedians that have been there, he was actually top drawer. He was funny. He was it just start to finish.
He broke the Ipswich curse.
Yes. And the routine about the bear. The bear he wanted for Christmas, and his mum and her friend decided to make him one. And I won't spoil it for those who haven't listened.
I'm going to mention possibly the most awkward thing in the world ever. 2019 saw the In-Betweeners reunited for a one-off TV special.
Yes,
it was awful. It was the most dreadful show I have ever seen. Well, okay, well, it's maybe not the most dreadful show I've ever seen. It's certainly terrible. Yeah, I remember switching it off and thinking, that's an hour of my life that I'd rather like back. It was an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the good thing about it though is that they've all come out and said that they won't be doing any more stuff like that. So
yeah, they're all really, really funny separately. But anything like that that was absolutely awful. But there is actually another show that we haven't mentioned, which is a new one by the name of The Cleaner. And this was actually based on a German show, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of because my German is absolutely terrible. And I wouldn't want to offend any German listeners or any German speaking listeners by even attempting to pronounce it. But as we record this, 2 episodes have been broadcast. All 6 are on iPlayer. And I would say this is probably one of, if not the funniest comedy this year. Now, the first episode actually sees Helena Bonham Carter starring. And not many sitcoms can claim Hollywood actresses among their cast of their first episode. So what did you make of The Cleaner?
Well, I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I've seen the Helena Bonham Carter one, and I must say it was good. But touching on what you said about her starring in a British sitcom, it was my head was telling me she's out of place. She's out of place. She should be in a big major blockbuster. But once I got over that, she was fantastic in it. She stole the first episode. Just it was completely over the top, and Greg with his usual lunacy in his acting. But I laughed. Yeah, I did enjoy it, and it was one of those. I got to the end and thinking, don't know quite what to make of that. What was it trying to be? Was it and that was good because it wasn't. I wasn't thinking badly. I was thinking in good ways about what it was doing, what it was trying to achieve, what pigeonhole it was trying to put itself in, and it wasn't. It was just trying to be different.
And that's the thing, is that he's actually written that himself. So a lot of sitcoms have these huge teams of writers, and it is literally just him. But the
thing that confused me as well, it was based on the German show, and I was thinking, wonder when Greg went over to Germany and thought, I wonder what's on the TV tonight, and watched this comedy and thought, oh, I'll adapt that. Maybe didn't. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks with me. But do we know how he stumbled upon this, or did somebody come to him with it, or I don't know. I would like to see the German version, but I don't know any German, so I'd struggle to understand it, I think.
Well, the German actually has 7 seasons.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So it's actually quite well known over there. But yeah, I don't know how he's actually stumbled across the idea of it.
Yeah.
But it is actually it's quite a big deal. It started over there in 2011 and finished in 2018. But it actually won quite a few. No, the German version won quite a few awards over there. And there was actually a similar show in Australia called Mr. and Mrs. Murder.
Yep, I've heard of that, and I never put the connection together because I do like a lot of Australian TV, and I was aware of this program. I never put the two and two together. So, yeah, now you say it, spot on. Yeah.
Don't think there was a great deal of sort of connection other than sort of the sort of plot line and things, but yeah, there's definitely a bit of overlap. But yeah, anyone who's not seen any of the show as it's been broadcast, you really do need to be getting onto iPlayer and having a watch of it. I watched the whole thing the weekend of the first episode, I know sometimes the iPlayer will put the whole box set on release, and sometimes they'll drip feed the episodes out. So when I saw that this was out for the whole thing, it just had to be done, and it's just such.
The David Mitchell one I thought was superb. He played that role excellently. But I'm looking forward to the Stephanie Cole episode. What was she like?
I'm not going to spoil it for you.
No.
Hilarious.
So, try and answer without spoilers. And another one of my favourite British actresses is in it as well, Jo Hartley, who was in all the This Is England's and Eddie the Eagle movie. I really rate her as an actress as well, so I look forward to her.
And a little bit of trivia for you. We've talked about comedians that are from our sort of home area. There's an episode called The Influencer, and the main character, the main character in that is Jose, played by a gentleman called Leighton Williams, who was born in the same town that I was.
Excellent.
So that is a really, really funny episode, especially if you like sort of 80s nostalgia. I would not be surprised to hear that a few of our listeners are rather fond of that particular era of pop culture. But if you like your 80s pop culture, episode number 5, The Influencer, is definitely one to watch. But that brings us right up to date with the work of Greg Davies. Definitely a favourite of ours. Now, if you're interested in what else we're doing, our next episode in our regular monthly installments will be out on the 1st of October. And we will be covering the year 1984. So if you want to hear what was in store for me when I discovered a lot of early 80s comedy that I hadn't seen, or early to mid 80s comedy that I hadn't seen previously, then listen out for that one. That is on your usual podcast providers from the 1st of October. Now, we always like to hear from our listeners, both of you. So if you want to get in touch with us at any point, then all you need to do is head over to Twitter. You'll find us there at Comedy Room Pod. So if you like anything we're covering, or you maybe want to give us some ideas of some particular shows you want us to cover, or particular stars of the shows that you want us to cover, then head over there and we'll be able to look into any suggestions that you've got. Okay, so we will be back on the 1st of October. But in the meantime, thank you all for your support so far, and long may it continue.
Yep, and thank you from me as well.
And we'll see you all back on the 1st of October.